Have you ever wondered if our time on Earth is just one chapter in a much, much longer story? Today, we're going to dig into a perspective that really challenges everything we think we know about life, death, and, what comes next.
So, it all starts with this one big question. What if we're not just human beings who might have a spiritual side, but the other way around? What if we're spiritual beings just sort of trying out this human experience for a little while?
And look, this isn't just some abstract philosophical idea. It's meant to be an answer to the really tough stuff we all go through. You know, the illnesses, the money troubles, the heartaches, all the things that make us ask why. It's an attempt to find meaning when everything just feels like it's falling apart.
So, how do we make sense of all that? Well, the source we're exploring puts forward this framework it calls the soulproof idea. And it's presented as a way to completely reframe these challenges and, well, maybe even change how we experience life itself.
Okay, so the word soulproof itself is pretty clever. It's got this cool double meaning. On one hand, it's about the proof, the evidence, that we're more than just our bodies. But on the other hand, it's like a waterproof watch, the idea that our soul is indestructible, that it can't be damaged by what happens to us here.
Now, to back this all up, the source material pulls together evidence from 9 different areas. We're going to zoom in on 2 of the most powerful and, well, the most personal ones: after-death communications and near-death experiences.
First up, let's talk about after-death communications, or ADCs for short. These are these incredibly personal stories of people who feel they've gotten a direct message from a loved one who has passed on.
And here's a really key point. We're not talking about psychics or mediums here. The definition of an ADC is that it's a direct, spontaneous contact. It just happens, seemingly initiated by the person who has passed away.
Okay, get this. Here's a pretty wild example from the source material. A family is sitting around, talking about an inheritance, kind of worried their late grandmother wouldn't approve of their plans. And right then, a phone they all knew for a fact was not plugged in, starts ringing.
Now, that story might sound like a 1 in a million thing, right? But the source claims these experiences are way more common than you'd think. It points to a figure that suggests at least 60 million Americans have had one or more experiences just like this. That's a lot of people.
Here's another story, and this one is just so personal. You have a grieving father, totally lost in his sadness. He walks into his late daughter's room, picks up her favorite stuffed starfish, and sitting right on it is a small toy butterfly. Now, this was their thing. He'd always use the butterfly analogy to explain death to her. So for him, that wasn't random. The message was loud and clear. Dad, I made it. I'm okay.
All right, the next category of evidence we're going to look at is the phenomenon of near-death experiences, or NDEs. These are the first-hand accounts from people who were clinically dead and then somehow came back.
And what's so fascinating is that no matter the culture, no matter the time in history, these reports share these incredibly similar themes. People talk about this overwhelming feeling of peace, a sense of leaving their body, moving towards a brilliant light, and just being surrounded by this unconditional love.
But here's where it gets really compelling. Some of these accounts include details that can actually be verified. There's a story of one woman who was clinically dead during her surgery. Later on, she completely floored her doctor by describing specific things from the procedure, things she could not possibly have seen. She said, from this out-of-body viewpoint, she saw everything, right down to the blood going down a drain.
But honestly, beyond all the crazy details, the biggest thing, the thing that seems to change everything for these people, is the psychological shift. Almost every single person who has one of these experiences says that their fear of death is just gone, completely replaced by this deep sense of peace about whatever is next.
So, what's the ultimate point of all this? Where does it all lead? Well, the source argues that if you really take on this soul-proof perspective, it fundamentally transforms how you live your life, right here and now.
It leads to this pretty incredible conclusion that if our true self is eternal, then life on Earth isn't some scary, random thing we have to survive. Instead, it becomes this totally safe and magnificent adventure that's just a small part of this much bigger thing called eternity.
And just think about what that means for a second. If you truly believe your core self, your spirit, is indestructible, well, then you can't really be hurt. You can't ultimately fail, and you don't really die. And according to this idea, that's the key to living a full life, completely without fear.
And that kind of brings us to the final thought, the big question that this whole explainer leaves us with.
If you truly believed it, deep down, that failure isn't the end of the story and that your journey keeps going, what would you do differently? What magnificent adventure would you choose for your life starting today?